at my own experience, the fact that, like, when I'm sitting at home in Canada, I never before August 1990 thought of going back to the Soviet Union, which had not been kind to my parents, and I never gave one moment thought to the idea of starting university. So it wasn't that we came here with an agenda. So the kind of thing is what happened that got us there. And when I think back, the fact that I got into the Soviet Union in 1989, through a series of very, very random events. But the first two actually had to do with KGB agents. One of them was the person I met in Buenos Aires, who was a #2 guy in the US Embassy, who persuaded me to come here. And the story's written up, so I won't tell it. And when I got here, one of my best contacts, in fact, was the KGB person that I went to Harvard Business School with, and he was in Gorbachev's inner economic cabinet and introduced me to everybody inside the system. So there were people involved like this that just came out of the past summer or out of the blue. The other one is Johannes Reimer, who had played a very important role in what was happening east and west in those days. Again, we met, and he was the one who introduced me to people like that. So there were a number of people, and then of course the whole role of a person like Gorbachev being a leader who allowed things to happen. So there were a series of events that happened before, and I won't tell the story of TAR, of course, which becomes part of that. But I think there was, these events could not have been predicted, and in fact the people like the CIA and others had not predicted the kind of things that happened. So, but I think the fact that we were here, and also with the background of my mother and my family, the fact that we were here with a certain amount of awareness and understanding allowed us to move into things which allowed things to happen. There was a background to that. The other thing I think is very important is what the first projects we came here with after the first meeting, we decided to do conferences on business and ethics in the Soviet Union. We figured, what's the guy out of Canada going to come and talk about business and ethics? We held national conferences, 4 of them, 3 in Soviet times in Communist Party buildings. But the reason that's interesting is what have we got here today? LCC is a Christian university, primarily with its biggest program business, and we view ourselves as a university or a college which in a sense promotes the idea of values and the idea of ethics and that. So the link between our initial project and this, in fact, is very, very close. So I will simply say that there were many things that happened in advance, and I think looking back, none of them could have been predicted. I'll add one comment. I'm working on not my memoirs so much, but I've written a lot of material over the years, a lot of which is never published. And I'm going through my material from, while I was here, I would make a habit of every trip writing on the plane home, writing an essay, which was sort of no names basis that I could in those days, didn't have all the fancy emails, but I would send it to maybe 30, 40, 50 people, just to inform what's going on in Soviet Union. It was written on the plane home, so very current, very experiential. And as I read those things, I was actually quite amazed at some of the insights and things. Everyone about people always said, well, did you ever think a thing like LCC? When I read the things about LCC, we actually dreamed of something not different than this back in those early days. And there's some very, very interesting notes about, which is much, much bigger things than what's happening in the Soviet Union before we could see a lot of the things happen. Again, when you read the notes, it's not so surprising. Like I didn't know at the time, but when you see the things we're experiencing, and then I wrote about a year after that and a few other essays. And so that might become out either my website or a book in the next year. And I encourage some of you to read that because it gives you a window into that period in which LCC weaves through it, but it's only part of a much bigger story.